for the next 20 minutes because, yes, believe it or not, we're back here at the master stage of this business day here at Station F. Following, of course, the AI Action Summit. I know there's a lot going on outside this stage here, but you really want to stay with us for the next 20 minutes because we're going to dive into a crucial question when it comes to fostering a better AI ecosystem, and of course, how you guys been scaling in this sector and area. We'll be focusing on what's core actually for this ecosystem again, and at the heart of the global investment battle, infrastructures. So if we want to sum it up, it's kind of easy. No infra, no data, no AI per se. Can Europe make its own luck when it comes to powering data centers, boosting chips productions, enabling data enhancement? To dive in this question, I'm pleased to be joined by two crucial members of the European AI value chain, Guillaume Liegey, co-founder and CEO of Explain, and Jérôme Lecat, CEO of Scality. Good afternoon to you, gentlemen. So you're both, of course, part of the AI value chain. Jérôme, you're crafting backstage storage and cloud solutions for global clients. And Guillaume, you're helping businesses to seize these market opportunities with an AI tool dedicated to the public market. Again, how would you describe the ecosystem nowadays? Where are we at? It's 2025. Is it the year of Europe for AI?
I'd say we're 1996 for the internet era, the moment where political people are realizing something's happening and drawing attention. Look upstairs, how many people there are. We have a summit.
I think someone is kind of stealing the attention right now.
So, yeah, 96, which means that nothing has been played yet. Everything's open for grab, which also means that people, if I go back, I was actually in the internet industry since 94. So I actually went through that. In 96, people were laying fiber everywhere, up to the point that at some point there was too much fiber, which was part of the dot-com crisis because we put too much infrastructure. And it took actually until about 2004 that people really started focusing on what are we going to do with all this and what are the business applications. And I think that, well, we've learned a little bit. So there's still a lot of hype around data centers. I mean, obviously we need data centers, we need GPU. But as we've seen with what happened with DeepSeek a couple of weeks ago, we also need the intelligence. We can also disrupt the way of doing things still because it's early enough. And I think that the real game is going to be in applications.
And we've definitely got to get back to this. So 109 billion euros pouring into France in a quick second. But I want to pick your brain, actually, Guillaume, on that question. Is definitely 2025 the year that Europe is going to win the AI battle?
Well, I can tell you there's definitely a battle. So everything at the summit was having the same message, being the president or Ursula von der Leyen. They were saying, we, Europe, want to play the game, and we believe we have weapons to play the game. And if you look at the messages conveyed by politicians and investment funds, everybody started talking about application, the vertical, specialized application of AI. So that's exactly what we're doing. Just to be clear, at Explain, we use AI and large language models to automate the workflow of companies who bid for government contracts. So that's a good example of a very specific use cases. Trust me, with a lot of pain, it's amazingly painful to bid for a government contract. There's a lot of paperwork, but it's a huge economic opportunity. It's 12% of the global GDP. And Europe can play that game and can win against American players because the level of investment that you need to succeed in building a great vertical application is not in the tens of billions. It's in the tens of millions, maybe small 100 millions, but it's a different order of magnitude. And what I can see, and with our example, we are competing with American counterparts, and our product is better, and we've raised so far less than 10 million. So yes, Europe can play that game. So far, what I've heard is a lot of people conveying that same messages on the investment side, on the political side. Now I think it's time to move from messages and speeches to actions. So we'll see what's going to happen.
But let me actually dive into this for a quick sec. Do you actually stand for the fact that vertical AIs are definitely a chance for France to make a difference? Because, I mean, there's like these large language models all over the place, and there's like generalist type of GPTs, again, all over the market. But are vertical AIs our best chance to make a difference?
Well, yeah, I believe so. There's in France, and I mean, I'm talking about France then, there's more than 750 AI, Gen AI startups. So the ecosystem is alive. It's very, very active. So obviously not everybody will succeed, but we have the tools and the right approach to solve a lot of problems. Because the difference between a company like OpenAI that builds foundational models and a company like Explain who uses those models to incorporate it into a tech stack and automate a specific workflow is that it takes a lot of time and hours to understand a specific work routine. So it's true in my field. It's also true for companies like Gemini, who does that for lawyers. It's also true for Nabla, who does that for doctors. You need specialized company. You need people who care enough about going into the daily routine of people and find out how and what can AI automate. So that's why, yes, I'm convinced about that. There's one caveat, though. We need a market. Today, if you start a company in Silicon Valley, you instantly have access to a huge market, I mean, for a startup. Europe is not a unified market, but if it were, we would be the first economic power in the world. So that's a very good test for Europe. Will we move towards make it easier for European companies to scale up with better access to the European market? It's a good test for us.
Well, actually, companies that have made it to the European market are definitely cloud operators. 80%, Jérôme, of European businesses depend on American cloud operators to this date. How can we wait in this market when we are European or French cloud providers?
Don't launch me on this.
Well, I'm definitely, that's what I'm doing right here, right now.
It's a disaster. I mean, most European corporations, most European government bodies, including defense, buys most of their ITs from US providers. Most, I mean, and when I say most, it's in the order of magnitude of 80% and sometimes even more. I think that for a long time, I've heard, yeah, we have to buy from US providers because there's no European provider. This is not true anymore. There's a lot of European offering. They're buying from US just because they're used to. And every time any European corporation buys from a US company, that's detrimental to our trade deficit, every time. And I think that we need more consciousness, and it starts with every one of us as individual. It starts with everyone who makes purchasing decision inside corporation, purchasing decision inside government bodies. We have customers in 60 countries around the world, so I tend to travel quite a lot. Sorry for the carbon footprint, although we offset. Well, we do as well as we can.
Well,
but when I go to other countries, they have this consciousness, starting with the US. I mean, the US has the Small Business Act, but beyond the Small Business Act, purchasers in the US will preferably buy from a US corporation, and they will buy from other corporations if they don't have a choice.
So if I'm actually saying that, from your perspective, we definitely need to change gears when it comes to acquiring a better economic literacy or business literacy as users, I mean, for our own, or as buyers, when it comes to large corporates or even organizations or local and probably domestic governments. Would you say that, both of you actually, economic patriotism is a nose or a swear?
We absolutely need to switch towards more patriotism. I think I'm going to use the French word here. Well, works in English too. I think that there's no sovereignty without patriotism. When I arrived in the US, I lived for 12 years in the US. I noticed that there were American flag on every property, on every lawn. And at the beginning, I thought this was ridiculous. Okay, we don't put French flags everywhere. We don't. And but now I understand it has far-reaching consequences, economic consequences. And I think that we need to wake up. If we don't pay attention to our companies, and now there is offering in tech in Europe. in France, in Germany, in Sweden, I mean, all across Europe, really. We need to buy from them.
Would you say, Guillaume, following up and building up on Jérôme's answer, that actually nowadays choosing an AI tool is definitely a political statement?
Well, choosing an electric car apparently today is a political statement.
Depending on the brand of the car,
I think what you've seen is that a lot of players, political players, corporate players, want to find a way to make it easier for European companies to strive and survive. And it's true, the Americans have always done that. In a way, Trump and J.D. Vance are doing us a favor because they're so blunt. So it's very clear what they're doing. You know, your previous administration were a bit more like, they were still favoring their interest. America has always done that, but they had another discourse. I think Trump is very straightforward, and you know, it's a good wake-up call for us. And I believe we should do the same. I mean, to do the same, we first need to define what's a European interest. I had a conversation recently, and I was just complaining about why doesn't Europe move on tiny stuff, and they're like, well, first of all, we don't have a European general interest. We're not able to define that. So I think now we have one with AI. We want to be an AI, a continent that champions AI. That's a common interest. It's a narrow one, but it's a first one.
So AI would definitely be that common value where we can build on and just believe in ourselves for some reason. Like I'm going to refer to the Draghi's report. I mean, a lot has been said about Mario Draghi's report again, and we can probably sum it up into invest and innovate or perish. That's it. Are we actually willing to put that in action, in motion?
Well,
Look, I think that the partnership that was announced last week with Abu Dhabi is a very smart move.
MGX, to give you a little bit of context, so the MGX, which is the Abu Dhabi fund, is funding new private investments in France, especially an AI campus for 50 billion euros, and they're actually starting the financement of the Stargate project in the US, in Texas, for $100 billion.
But so Europe's not moving fast enough, so we need to create alternatives and to partner more widely. I think that this is great that this partner summit is also under the leadership of India. This partnership announced with Abu Dhabi, the UAE. I think that we need to go far-reaching. And I don't think it's only an AI game. I think it's a tech game. I think that our economies, the value chain, are going to be transformed by tech. They are being transformed. And we need to have more leadership in Europe. We have no problem producing companies, scale-ups. Now they need business.
But just to go back to what Jérôme was saying, you don't need to make a political choice. We have great tools, we have great applications, we have great companies in Europe. And it's not about like choosing a worse company for a political reason. No, it's just taking the time to look at what's there, maybe change your habits if you've been working with American tools, and make a little bit of effort to realize that actually we're building amazing companies in Europe. And sometimes, I wish that my company could be built across Germany, Spain, Belgium, and France from day one, because the rules of our clients are facing. So our clients, they bid for government contract. The rules are very similar across countries. Yet, we're only in France at the moment. We're very successful in France. We want to expand, but still we're only in France at the moment. And I wish the Commission would do something easier. It could be easier access to data, for example, because to public sector data, that could be a move. I'm not a politician and a regulator, so I don't know exactly, but I'm sure there are tons of moves if there's a political will. My take from the summit is that there is now a clear political will.
And there's also apparently also some grounds coming from President Macron to actually not deregulate, but open up a little bit the market and trying to find ways for companies such as yours to have a better and easier access to the markets. But coming back to this 109 billion euros pouring into France again, like private investments only. Would you guys say that actually money is the wisest source of energy to empower this AI ecosystem?
Look, there's such a change that, yes, money is important. I think that we've done a phenomenal job in France in the past 15 years creating VC funds. It's now possible to start a company to be financed Series A, Series B, Series C maybe, there is a lack of funds to create really big things like gigafactories, like AI data centers, or big research, okay? So from this standpoint, yes, we needed some money from the outside, and I think it's an incredibly good initiative. It was important, yes.
And also look at all the money that's been announced on the European level. I think, again, it's not a coincidence.
Which is 200 billion this time.
And so yeah, we need money to build like solid infrastructure because, you know, when you talk about sovereignty at some point, some assets are physical, data centers are physical. They cost a lot of money. So yes, for that, we need a lot of money. But my earlier point was that to build vertical champions, you don't need to raise what OpenAI raised or what Mistral raised. You can do that against with a different order of magnitude. If you quickly have access to a large market, because if you have access to a large market, you have access to a lot of users, and the more users you get, the better you, and then it's a race, you know, building the better product. And we Europeans were just as good as Americans.
With a few seconds left on stage, because time flies by literally here at Business Day at Station F, could we actually say no infra, no data, no AI?
Well, that's my business, so yes, I'm sure I would say that. So we create cyber-resilient data storage infrastructure. Without data, no AI. What's interesting right now, people need the data to train the models. I believe this is going to change. I think we'll need less and less data to train models, but we're going to store more and more data to be able to audit the model and to be able to go back and explain, I love the name of your company, explain why models are doing something. So yes, no data, no AI, and to have data, you need to store it physically somewhere. I would like to say that people often focus on where the data is stored, but to me, what's more important is not so much where it's stored, what is the legal construct that applies to the data. Whenever you store data in France, but if it's managed by, for example, an American company, you are under US law whether you want it or not. So it's very important to pay attention to what is the legal construct that will apply to your data.
And a good example of what you could actually clarify, what you've just said. It's just something, it's a very good point on something that we could change and we could...
You have literally 5 seconds.
5 seconds. So you said no infra, no data. I said
no AI.
So I run a vertical AI company, and we specialize because we want to solve real people's problems. I would say no people, no AI. You know, just to close on that debate.
No people, no AI. Well, actually, AI in Europe are open for business, and I guess. Well, that is actually something good to take away from these 2 days here at the AI Action Summit. Thank you so much for attending. I'll release you for now, but I know that you have like outstanding sessions coming up. Thank you so much.
Thank you.